Anvil Empires is about to hold its first open public test. A few days ago, I had the chance to take part in a similar playtest, essentially a smaller scale version of what's coming next week. From that experience, I've gathered a lot of feedback and concerns that I want to share. My main goal is to help players have a smoother and more enjoyable experience during the test, while also providing useful feedback to the developers. It's important to point out that this upcoming battle stress test is still in pre-alpha, which means everything shown in this video is subject to change and may not reflect the final version of the game when it officially launches later this year. That said, I had a lot of fun during the playtest. Even if some of my feedback comes off as critical, I encourage everyone to try it for themselves and form their own opinions. One of the first things I want to address is how vital coordination and teamwork are to success in Anvil Empires. Much like in Foxhole, this isn't a game where you can be a lone hero who turns the tide of battle on your own. You're not going to be racking up double-digit kills every life. Victory comes from communication and cooperation. During my playtest, I found it tough to rally players together to form proper lines and push to the keep. Too many people were running off solo, making it hard to build momentum. If you're participating in the playtest, I highly recommend actively communicating and helping others group up. There's a mechanic in the game that reinforces this idea. When you group up, shield icons appear, granting you a strong defensive buff. If you're not inside the formation, you're vulnerable and will likely get picked off quickly. It's important to remember that you're just one piece in the much larger war machine. Again, you're not going to take the keep by yourself. We need to rally at the road, let's go everybody. We need to go together.
Form up.
Oh, I'm not dying to do.
Form up.
Push. Three shield bonus.
Classic ancient population.
Push forward, man.
Alright, get it.
Forward.
I get these bitches.
Keep it tight.
Move forward.
Switch to line. Reform the lines. Let's go. Steal the ladders.
Go.
Steal the ladders. Brandoid says push.
Push.
Come on, you fuck.
Oh, no shield, Nielser.
Hold the line!
Next, I've seen a lot of concerns about how the combat looks and how it might come across as boring. I'd say that when you first jump in, it's actually pretty engaging. There's a lot to figure out in terms of how to attack and maneuver, but over time, it can start to feel repetitive, especially with the current meta mostly being about lining up, charging in, and getting taken out after 2 or 3 hits. I think what will really elevate the combat is when more weapons get added to the game. It reminds me of how Foxhole started with just a handful of rifles, and now there are tons of options to choose from. We're still in the early stages of Anvil Empires, and I believe the combat has a lot of room to grow and evolve. Another major concern I have is the team population balance. In my playtest, the ancient defenders clearly outnumbered us and kept us pinned down near our siege camp. Since this was a test, they had essentially unlimited supplies, which made it incredibly hard to break through. Their numbers allowed them to maintain a solid infantry presence while still being able to stack archers on the walls as well. My worry is that future tests might have similar issues, especially if multiple tests are run at once, leading to one-sided matches where one team dominates purely through numbers. Hopefully, the devs can implement a system that keeps team sizes more balanced for a fairer experience. Next, I want to touch on archers just briefly. Archers during my playtest felt extremely overpowered. It was nearly impossible to approach the keep without getting dropped by arrows before seeing the top of the wall. The current bow buff gives defending archers a massive advantage. While I appreciate archers being deadly, I think their damage or range may need to be adjusted. This is just my opinion from one playtest. It might be that the bows are actually good where they are, and it was the factor of just being outnumbered that was more of the problem. I did hear from someone with inside knowledge that the devs might experiment with balance changes throughout the week during these tests, which I really hope they do. I think this is the ideal time to test and fine-tune these kind of mechanics. Next, let's talk about siege equipment. The addition of siege towers is a great step forward. They look amazing and feel impactful. However, coordinating their use is incredibly difficult. You need 6 players to move a tower, and if even one gets killed or steps off, the entire tower stops. This made it nearly impossible to reach the wall during the playtest, especially under constant pressure from archers and infantry. I think siege equipment should still function with a partial crew, just at a reduced effectiveness. For example, a tower could still move forward with 4 players but slower, and battering rams should retain momentum even if a crew member dies just before impact. Currently, all it takes is one attacker jumping on and killing a single operator to completely stop a push. I don't think this should be the case. These tools should scale in performance based on how many players are operating them, and not be an all or nothing situation. One last thing with the siege tower is that anyone can deploy it at any time, which also stops it from moving forward. I believe there should be some kind of cooldown for this action so people don't grief other players.
And someone dropped the ladder. Everyone who's stopped climbing the tower, it's literally pointless.
Oh my god, they're pushing.
It's like pull.
Shift, push, shift, push, shift, push, shift, push.
Right side pull. Right side push. Right side push. Right side pull. Right side pull.
Push.
Push now.
Good. Defend.
Come in.
Hop on. Everybody hop on and W. Hop on and W.
Shift W, shift W, shift W, shift W, shift W, shift W. Shift push, shift push, shift push.
No, deployed it. Need to make it clear you can't do that.
Push.
Yeah, push it.
Stop the pushing. Stop the push.
Push.
Push the tower.
Shift. Hop on and shift. Put up.
Oh my god. Big fan.
Oh, thank you so much. Those were some of my major concerns, and these are a few smaller changes I'd love to see adjusted for the upcoming test as well. First, I would like to talk about the siege timer. In my playtest, we had 40 minutes, and by the time we got our first siege tower to the gate, time ran out. It takes time just to organize and push forward. In future tests with more players, I expect the same thing with defenders will occur, and they will meet the attackers in the open field, further slowing progression down. I think giving attackers more time would help balance this out. Maybe make each test an hour to start off with. Another fix to this would be to add a small timer at the start of each test, where both sides can't move for 3 to 5 minutes. This gives everyone time to load in, and one side can't just storm the other side when they aren't prepared. Next, I would like to see more siege camp options to spawn at. Right now, attackers only get one siege camp to spawn from, which funnels all assaults through a single direction. This makes it easy for defenders to focus all their efforts on one front. Adding more camp options would force defenders to spread out and react to threats from multiple angles. Finally, there needs to be a better system in place to stop players from stealing carts and siege equipment so easily. Right now, carts don't put the user in combat when hit, but they do lock the attacker, making them slower, which makes stealing them very low risk. Defenders were constantly running off with cartloads of supplies during my playtest, without any consequences. Carts should either slow down if the person hauling them takes damage, or force the hauler into a combat state. Otherwise, the defenders will continue to just dash in, grab everything, and vanish before the attackers can react.
Open it. Die outside.
I will bring
push.
victory.
2, 1.
Victory.
Storm in. Go home.
That wraps up all of my main concerns and feedback from the battle test. I do want to say, the actual test that I did ran really smooth. I didn't experience any noticeable lag or technical issues during the battle itself, which is a great sign for a pre-alpha test. I also need to make a quick correction from my last Anvil Empires video. I may have misunderstood part of the email I received from the developers last week regarding what would be available in the upcoming test. Based on what I read, I assume players would have access to features like gathering, building, and more of the sandbox systems. However, from what others are saying, it looks like this test will be focused strictly on combat and the large-scale keep battles. So if I gave anyone the wrong impression, I apologize for the confusion. Even if it is just combat focused, I still recommend checking it out. It's free and I had a great time during my session. And just remember, like with any game in early testing, things might break. There could be bugs, performance hiccups, or even server crashes from high player numbers. That's all part of the process. Be patient, give feedback, and enjoy being part of shaping the game's development. I will make sure to leave all the important links below if you want to join the fight next week. Thank you all so much for watching and for your support. Make sure to subscribe for more Anvil Empires content. I'll see you out on the battlefield. Cheers.